General Hospital spoilers for Friday. On August 15th, Michael Corinthos will deck Drew Kane in public, while Jocelyn Jack saves Vaughn's life. Jason Morgan will also stun Britt Westbourne, so expect some exciting scenes in Friday's GH episode. First, Trina Robinson will catch up with Portia Robinson and reveal she knew there was something her mother wasn't telling her. This could be related to all of the Drew drama, so keep an eye out for Portia and Trina settling things. In the meantime, Jocelyn will receive some unpleasant news. Vaughn will inform Jocelyn that she has been removed from the assignment owing to her relationship to Britt, but Jocelyn will not accept that decision. Jocelyn may confirm her point when she discovers someone attempting to choke Vaughn in their room later. Pascal appears to be acting on Colette Moreau's suggestion, sending someone to assassinate the WSB agents who have penetrated the property. When Jocelyn draws her weapon and presumably fires at the man attempting to wipe Vaughn off the map, Vaughn should be thankful. Jason will eventually make his way to the Five Poppies resort, so there will be a dramatic scene when he finally locks eyes with Britt and takes her by surprise. Back in Port Charles, Stella Henry will ask why Tracy Quartermain is assisting the man she despises, which could include Sonny Corinthos and Tracy's efforts to protect deception. Jordan will discuss saving the best for last in her new home. Curtis Ashford will be unsettled by something that happens in Friday's episode, so there could be a kiss with Jordan, or even the desire for more. Speaking of temptation, Sonny and Ada Justine Turner may encounter some as well. Justine will seek Sonny out to apologize, so may they kiss behind closed doors? Felicia Scorpio will then offer advice to Isaiah Gannon, and may encourage him to keep out of other people's personal affairs. Isaiah will be unsure whether he should leave things alone because he is still concerned about Curtis and Jordan's relationship, but Felicia may believe he should back off. Finally, Drew will intentionally provoke Michael in order to get the intended outcome. Drew appears to be purposely pushing Michael to his breaking point, prompting Michael to deck Drew and make a public display of animosity. According to General Hospital spoilers, Michael may find himself in hot water as a result, so stay tuned for more information on the situation. The General Hospital recap is officially here for Thursday, August 14th, 2025. In today's episode, Jordan Ashford discusses her fortune. Stella Henry advocates for Kai Taylor. Additionally, Ezra Boyle threatens Laura Collins. Jordan Ashford's fortune. Jordan is in her new, vacant apartment. Anna Devane drops by with a gift box. Jordan discusses hiring a high-end designer to work on her home. Jordan responds, she can afford it now, as Anna's eyebrows raise. Anna inquires if Jordan's plan has altered. She has not come across anything illegal while working for Jen Sidwell. Anna informs her that Sidwell almost killed several people in South Africa. Jordan claims that if her lifestyle does not match her income, it may turn Sidwell off. Anna appears suspicious and believes she should pull Jordan out. Curtis Ashford drops by after Anna leaves to inspect the apartment. Jordan is accepting his offer to inspect the property. Curtis is perplexed by her want to inspect every inch. Portia Robinson's Joy. Isaiah Gannon and Portia Robinson are discussing schedules. Curtis drops by to extend a special invitation to his wife. A private taste with a top chef. Portia is quite excited. She kisses Curtis passionately while Isaiah looks on dismayed. Later, Portia raves about Curtis to Isaiah. The surgeon wonders where Jordan fits into the situation. Read more. Find out what happened in the most recent episode of JH. Stella Henry advocates Stella and Trina Robinson met. Despite being warned, Stella must play matchmaker. They discuss what happened with Kai. Stella plays devil's advocate while she listens to the story. Trina can't get over the betrayal. Stella describes how Kai felt loyal to both Drew Kane and Trina. He just leaned too much in one direction. Stella tells her that love is not black and white. Kai and Drew are conversing, but the politician is distracted. He must refocus his efforts on permanently relocating to Washington, D.C. Drew tells his version of the story involving Scout Quartermain and Alexis Davis. Kai's new role is to be Drew's eyes and ears. This includes everything, not just political issues. Read this. General Hospital Live Zoom event with two hot cast members. Ezra Boyle's threat. Laura and Ezra debate removing the mayor. Laura is stunned. Later, she meets Sonny Corinthos and doesn't care who sees them in public. However, she wants to know if it's true that he kidnapped Marco Rios. Anna interrupts, so Sonny departs. He heads over to meet Justine Turner. She accuses him of following her. She brings up the pricey gift and threatens to file a harassment claim. Back to Anna and Laura, they discuss Liesel Albrecht and Rocco Falconeri. It's preferable to be her buddy than her enemy. Ezra interrupts to announce that Laura's library initiative received enough votes to approve. Ezra accuses Laura of having Sunny bribe the council members. Anna and Laura crack jokes while Ezra threatens to become mayor. Turner received a mysterious gift with pricey bath and beauty goods. Justine blames Sunny, but Molly Lansing Davis remarks that the present appears to be quite intimate. Molly inquires if the spa goods are for her ankle. Justine needs to be extremely explicit with Sunny. Guess who walks in? Molly removes herself and sits with Drew to discuss Scout. She wants a compromise, but Drew believes they're past that. They are only moving to Washington, D.C. He even taunts her by stating that he intends to keep Scout away from her grandmother, who is no longer in Scout's best interests, as well as Scout's aunts Molly and Christina Corinthos Davis. Sunny and Donna Corinthos swing by to speak with Gio Palmieri. After Donna leaves, Sunny and Gio discuss Dante Falconeri's discovery of his biological father. They developed a relationship over time and with patience. If Gio changes his mind, his parents will be there since they are wonderful people. Later, Michael Corinthos speaks with Gio. They discuss children, parents, and Willow Tate. Dante wants to obtain traffic camera evidence to indicate Willow targeted Sasha Gilmore Corbin and Daisy Gilmore Corinthos. Brooke Lynn Quartermain interrupts as they discuss making an arrest. They chat about Gio. BLQ believes Dante to demonstrate his abilities to Gio. However, Dante believes that this is a us thing. Eventually, Dante convinces BLQ to accept. Meanwhile, Harrison Chase runs into Willow in the park. She tells him what happened to Lucas Jones. Chase informs her about their adoption plans. Then, he tells her about how the adoption has been put on hold because of how sensitive things are between BLQ and Gio, considering she put him up for adoption. Drew was leaning against a lamppost, his trademark smirk plastered across his face as he chatted with a group of onlookers, oblivious to Michael's approach. The air crackled with anticipation as Michael stopped a few feet away, his voice cutting through the chatter like a blade. "Drew," he said, his tone low but carrying the weight of a challenge, "you've got a lot to say behind my back. Care to say it to my face?" The crowd hushed, heads turning, eyes wide with curiosity. Drew's smirk faltered for a split second, but he recovered quickly, pushing off the lamppost and squaring his shoulders. "Michael, always so dramatic," he drawled, his voice dripping with mockery. "What's the matter? Can't handle a little truth?" The exchange escalated faster than anyone expected. Michael's fists clenched at his sides, his jaw tight as he recounted the lies Drew had spread. Claims of deceit in business dealings, accusations that Michael had swindled partners out of their fair share. Drew laughed, dismissing the accusations with a wave of his hand, but the crowd's murmurs grew louder, some nodding in agreement with Michael, others egging Drew on. The tension snapped when Drew made a flippant remark about Michael's family, a low blow that drew gasps from the onlookers. Michael's restraint shattered. In a blur of motion, he closed the distance, his fist connecting with Drew's jaw in a clean, resounding crack. Drew stumbled back, clutching his face, shock replacing his smugness as the crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and shouts. The fight was over almost as soon as it began. Michael didn't press the advantage. He didn't need to. Drew, dazed and humiliated, scrambled to his feet, muttering curses as he backed away, the crowd's jeers following him. Michael stood his ground, chest heaving, his point made. The onlookers dispersed slowly, some whispering about Michael's strength, others about Drew's recklessness. But as the adrenaline faded, Michael felt no satisfaction, only the weight of what had just unfolded in the heart of the town. He knew this wouldn't be the end of it, not with Drew's pride bruised and his reputation on the line. Still, for now, the square was his, and the whispers of his supposed misdeeds had been silenced, at least for the moment. Across town, in a quieter corner where the river wound lazily through the willows, Jocelyn knelt beside Vaughn, her hands trembling as she pressed a damp cloth to his forehead. Vaughn lay on the grass, his face pale, his breathing shallow. The accident had happened so quickly, a fall from the rickety bridge that spanned the river, a misstep that sent him tumbling into the shallow water below. Jocelyn had been nearby, sketching the scenery, when she heard the splash and the cry that followed. She dropped her sketchbook and ran, her heart pounding as she waded into the cold water to drag Vaughn to safety. He was heavier than she expected, his limp form slick with river water, but adrenaline gave her strength she didn't know she had. Now as she sat beside him, Jocelyn's mind raced. Vaughn wasn't just anyone, he was the town's golden boy. The one everyone looked to for hope, the one whose smile could diffuse any argument. If something happened to him, the town would unravel. She checked his pulse again, her fingers fumbling against his wrist, and relief washed over her as she felt the faint but steady beat. "Come on, Vaughn," she whispered, her voice thick with worry. "You're stronger than this." She glanced around, hoping for help, but the riverbank was deserted, the only sound the gentle lapping of water against the shore. Jocelyn knew she couldn't wait for someone else to find them. She had to act. She tore a strip from her scarf and used it to bind a gash on Vaughn's leg, the blood soaking through the fabric but slowing under her careful pressure. Her hands moved with a precision she hadn't realized she possessed, guided by instinct and the memory of her mother's lessons in first aid. Jocelyn spoke to Vaughn as she worked, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest, telling him about the sketches she'd been working on, about the way the light danced on the river at dusk. She didn't know if he could hear her, but she hoped her words would anchor him, keep him tethered to consciousness. Minutes stretched into an eternity until finally Vaughn's eyelids fluttered, a groan escaping his lips. Jocelyn's breath caught, tears prickling her eyes as she squeezed his hand. "You're okay," she said, more to herself than to him. "You're going to be okay." Help arrived soon after, a group of townsfolk drawn by the commotion, their voices a jumble of concern and relief as they carried Vaughn to safety. Jocelyn stayed by his side, her clothes still damp from the river, her heart still racing. Word of her bravery spread quickly, the townsfolk marveling at how she'd pulled Vaughn from the water and kept him alive until help came. But Jocelyn didn't feel like a hero. She felt fragile, shaken by how close she'd come to losing someone so vital to the town, and to her. As Vaughn was tended to by the town's doctor, Jocelyn slipped away, needing the quiet of her own thoughts. She didn't see the way the townsfolk looked at her, their respect for her growing, nor did she hear the whispers of gratitude that followed her through the streets. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit tavern on the edge of town, Jason sat across from Britt, his eyes locked on hers as the weight of his words hung in the air. Britt leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed, her expression a mix of skepticism and curiosity. She was no stranger to Jason's intensity, his tendency to speak in riddles that left people guessing, but tonight was different. There was a fire in his eyes, a certainty that made her pause. Jason had always been an enigma, a man who moved through the town like a shadow, known for his sharp mind and sharper secrets. Britt, with her quick tongue and quicker temper, had never been one to back down from a challenge, and Jason was nothing if not a challenge. "I know what you did," Jason said, his voice low, barely audible over the clink of glasses and the murmur of the tavern's patrons. Britt's eyes narrowed, but she didn't flinch. "You're going to have to be more specific," she replied, her tone sharp but laced with unease. Jason leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table, his gaze unwavering. He spoke of a deal she'd made, a secret she'd buried deep, one that could unravel everything she'd built in this town. Britt's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her face impassive, her years of practice at hiding her true feelings serving her well. "You're fishing, Jason," she said, forcing a laugh. "If you had anything real, you wouldn't be sitting here playing games." But Jason wasn't playing. He slid a folded piece of paper across the table, his movements deliberate. Britt hesitated, her fingers hovering over the paper before she snatched it up, unfolding it with a flick of her wrist. Her eyes scanned the words, and for the first time that night, her composure cracked. The paper detailed a transaction, names and dates that should have been long forgotten, evidence of a choice she'd made years ago when desperation had driven her to cross lines she swore she'd never cross again. Her hands trembled slightly as she folded the paper and tucked it into her pocket, her mind racing for a way out. "How did you get this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jason didn't smile, didn't gloat. He simply watched her, his expression unreadable. "Doesn't matter how," he said. "What matters is what you do now." Britt's mind spun, calculating her options, weighing the cost of silence against the cost of exposure. She could deny it, fight back, turn the tables on Jason, but she knew he wasn't bluffing. He never did. The tavern seemed to close in around her, the laughter and chatter of the other patrons fading into a distant hum as she grappled with the reality of her past catching up to her. Jason didn't press her for an answer. He leaned back, taking a slow sip of his drink, giving her space to process. Britt hated that about him, his ability to stay calm when everything around him was chaos. She wanted to lash out, to wipe the quiet confidence from his face, but she knew better. Jason wasn't her enemy, not yet, but he held her fate in his hands, and that was enough to make her blood run cold. "What do you want?" she asked finally, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Jason's eyes softened just for a moment, before the steel returned. "I want the truth," he said. "And I want you to make it right." The night wore on, the town alive with the echoes of these moments. Michael's stand in the square, Jocelyn's quiet heroism by the river, Jason's calculated move in the tavern. Each event rippled through the community, shifting alliances, stirring whispers, and setting the stage for what was to come. The town was small, but its heart was vast, a tapestry of loyalties and betrayals, courage and secrets, woven together by the people who called it home. And as the stars rose over the cobblestone streets, the riverbank, and the tavern's flickering lights, the weight of choices made and truths uncovered lingered, a promise of more to unfold. Drew's sharp tongue had always been a weapon, and on this day he wielded it with deliberate cruelty. He wasn't just provoking Molly out of irritation. He was testing her resolve, pushing her into a corner where she would either fold or fight back. Molly, already carrying the weight of her strained family relationships and her complicated connection with TJ, found herself unable to look away from his piercing stare. Drew knew exactly where to strike, her insecurities about her place in the Davis family, her role in TJ's life, and her fragile sense of control over the chaos around her. Every word he delivered was a jab meant to remind her that he was dangerous in ways she hadn't fully realized, that he wasn't going to be dismissed as just another problem to manage. The more he taunted her, the more Molly's anger simmered beneath her calm facade, threatening to spill out. She understood that Drew wasn't acting out of random malice. He was calculating, measuring her reactions, and looking for weaknesses to exploit. While this tense standoff brewed, Jordan found herself in a very different place. For once, the fortune seemed to be shifting in her direction. After months of setbacks, personal disappointments, and professional obstacles, an unexpected opportunity had appeared, almost as though fate was finally granting her some relief. Her career, which had been weighed down by missteps and mistrust, seemed to be finding new ground. But Jordan wasn't one to trust fortune easily. She understood that gains could vanish in an instant, especially when the people around her carried secrets and grudges. Still, there was a glimmer of hope in her demeanor, a confidence that perhaps she could reshape her narrative and seize the advantage while others around her faltered. Jordan's fortune wasn't just about money or position. It was about respect, stability, and the kind of influence that could allow her to protect the ones she cared about. The question was whether she would use this fortune to shield her family, or to push back against old enemies who were eager to see her stumble again. Stella, ever the voice of reason, found herself in the middle of these swirling conflicts. She had always prided herself on advocating for those who couldn't speak for themselves, on stepping in when tempers flared and guiding people back toward what mattered most. Her advocacy wasn't just about lecturing or scolding. It was about reminding people of their humanity, their connections, and the bigger picture. In the middle of Drew's games, Molly's rising anger, and Jordan's precarious balance, Stella tried to anchor them all. She knew that pushing too hard could alienate them, but staying silent would mean letting chaos win. Stella's words carried the weight of someone who had lived long enough to see cycles of mistakes and reconciliations. She reminded Molly that anger could be transformed into determination, rather than destruction. She reminded Jordan that fortune wasn't permanent unless it was nurtured carefully. And even as she looked at Drew, she didn't let her disapproval turn into contempt. She advocated for him too in her own way, by trying to remind him that power rooted in cruelty never lasted. It was never about choosing sides for Stella. It was about ensuring that no one lost themselves completely in the fight. But while Stella advocated for balance and peace, Ezra lurked in the background with a threat that had the potential to unravel everything. Ezra was not loud, not flamboyant in his warnings. His menace came from the quiet confidence with which he moved. He didn't need to shout to be heard, because everyone who crossed him eventually learned the cost. His threat wasn't directed at one person. It was a storm cloud hanging over all of them. He had information, leverage, and a cold willingness to use both at the right moment. Unlike Drew, who taunted openly, Ezra thrived in subtlety, letting the fear of what he might do settle into the minds of those he watched. For Molly, Ezra represented the kind of danger that logic couldn't reason with. For Jordan, his threat meant her fragile fortune could collapse before it even had the chance to take root. For Stella, Ezra was the kind of force she could warn against but not easily disarm. And for Drew, Ezra was competition, someone equally dangerous but quieter and perhaps even more effective. The threat Ezra posed wasn't a single action or statement. It was the promise of destruction hanging in the air, waiting for the wrong step from anyone in his path. As the days unfolded, the threads of their conflicts began to tangle tighter. Drew's relentless taunts kept Molly on edge, forcing her to decide whether to confront him head-on or retreat into silence. Jordan's fortune seemed to draw more attention than she wanted, and the weight of expectation made her choices more dangerous. Stella tried harder than ever to mediate, but even she began to wonder whether her voice was enough to pull people back from the brink. And Ezra, his presence loomed larger with every whispered warning and every move he made from the shadows. None of them could fully predict when his threat would turn into action, but they all felt it pressing against them, shaping their choices and haunting their nights. The intersection of these four forces, taunts, fortune, advocacy, and threat, created an atmosphere in which every decision carried higher stakes. Drew's words weren't just insults. They were provocations that might ignite something bigger. Jordan's fortune wasn't just luck. It was a fragile shield that could vanish if she miscalculated. Stella's advocacy wasn't just kindness. It was a last attempt to prevent implosion. And Ezra's threat wasn't just potential. It was inevitability waiting to erupt. Together, they stood in a moment of tension, each of them playing a role in a drama that was as much about survival as it was about pride and loyalty. And as they moved forward, the balance between them would determine not just their individual fates, but the shape of the world they inhabited.